There's a short talk to be given by Abraham here. We will have heard yesterday from Andrew Harrison, the growth in data associated with the diamond light source. Well, diamond light source is not unique. Almost all areas of science have great volume of data which needs managing, curating, and using effectively. And we're fortunate in the Catalysis Hub that for the last 2 or 3 years, we've had Abraham who's been working on aspects related to catalysis data, including the development of a Catalysis Hub research data policy. And it's a pleasure to invite you, Abraham, to tell us briefly about the policy that he, in collaboration with others, has developed.
Good morning. Hi. Yes, my name is Abraham Nieva de Hidalga. I work at the Catalysis Hub and at the Cardiff University. And in the one, we started a project for the management and processing and analysis of data and trying to better support people. But we realized that one of the first things that we needed was a research data policy. This data policy has been presented and reviewed by the steering board, the UK Catalysis Hub steering board. And by the end of this presentation, you should have an idea of what motivated the development of this data policy, some of the relevant aspects of the policy, and the need to validating and agreeing to this policy. So an invitation for you to give us your feedback if you feel that something's missing or something can be improved. Why do we need another data policy? Well, most of the research we do is database. We have been collecting the research from the past, from the beginning of the hub in 2013 until this year. Even with COVID, the researchers managed to publish about 175 papers or so. There are 936 data objects linked to these publications that we have cataloged in the Catalysis data infrastructure, with more than 14,000 citations. And the most cited papers have some above 500, 200 citations. So it's a really relevant product of research that we have, and we have collaborations with a lot of institutions, 227 different institutions all over the world, not only in the UK. So there are 4 basic reasons. One is regulatory, the variability of the data, trying to be proactive rather than reactive, and to appreciate the value of research data. So in the regulatory aspect, we are a UK research funded institution, and as such, we have to a duty to make our research publicly available. Our partners, the universities, for instance, those in the Russell Group, Oxford, Cambridge, everywhere, they do have data policies. And every time we do research with them, we implicitly agree to those policies. And the same happens with the facilities such as ISIS and Diamond, which already have data policies as well. And finally, the publishers, they also ask us for this, the publishing of data, the making available our findings. So those are the regulatory reasons for data policy. The variability of the data, there is, we produce all kinds of data. Most of the data being published at the moment is in the form of documents. So this is the supplementary information. But we are slowly moving towards other types of data and full data sets, including raw data, intermediate data, process data. And even media files, images, and videos that are included with the publications. So, and this is just a summary because we try to catalog all this data, but you know, all these kinds of variations. In being proactive rather than reactive, if you are reactive, you are just publishing depending on the paper or the journal you are targeting. So depending on the requirements of the journal, you will publish some data or other. Instead of that, we would like to make it like remove this decision part in the middle and try to move to this side and just publish data irrespective of where the results are being published, and that gives you some freedom and some flexibility of about and one less thing to worry about at the moment of publishing. And then coming to the value of data, data is important for your research and it's very valuable, but it may also be used by other people. People in other projects may want to look at your data, try to reuse it. So it's important to be able to find it, to recover it, to interpret the data correctly. So reading the metadata about the data objects and try to replicate or try to produce new results. So reproduce or produce new results from this data. So those are the 4 reasons for data policy, basically. And we are aiming to catalog all this data, then make it fair, findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. The policy is non-prescriptive, non-restrictive in terms of data rights. We don't acquire rights on your data. It's still your data. We just want to know that it's been published and it's somewhere that it can be accessed and recovered. Even if it needs some licensing or if they have to contact you and ask for permission, that's up to you. And it should be easy to submit these links. So we will talk about it in a bit. So cataloging the data, at the moment, this is one of the examples in the Catalysis data infrastructure. So we have the paper, we have the teams. Because of the teams, we can see that this is a bug publication, so it's XAS related. We can look at associated data objects, and for instance, these publications have 3 published data sets in different repositories, and one of them is actually X-ray data, X-ray absorption spectroscopy data. So these results can be reproduced. We did an experiment, and we were able to reproduce the results for some of the experiments that have published the data. So that's encouraging. Making that data fair. So this is a current trend. Data should be findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable. Findable through the cataloging of the data. We are helping people find the data, having a single point of access for looking up for data. The accessibility is somewhat in the middle, and we would like to have automated means of reading this metadata, for instance, because at the moment metadata is in the form of Word documents, but it's getting there. Interoperability, well, if we know the format of the data, we know which software to use to interpret this data and try to process it or reproduce results. And because of this, the reusability increases. We can produce workflows, we can start thinking of artificial intelligence or data mining. So that's fair data. As I said, we don't really are trying to force you to one or other type of licensing here. The licensing fair data is not exactly the same as open data. Fair data is as long as you can find it and access it is fair. If you have to comply with some license, well, that's the nature of it, and we agree that sometimes restrictions are needed. And this applies also to the people trying to come, this policy applies also to the people trying to come and reuse your data. So they should abide by these rules. And if they produce some derived content or derived results, they should be also following this policy and making their data public. And apart from, of course, giving you credit for taking this data and using it again. It's a very lightweight policy. It's only 5 pages long, less than 1,500 words. It contains 11 defined terms, just to make clear what we're talking about, and 19 principles, which are the rules that we are trying to spell out. And that's basically in a nutshell what we have. We are trying to make the submission process really fast through the catalysis data infrastructure. So we will enable this in a short while. So you can, if you like, submit your data with your article, use the links so that we can index it. Is compatible with all these policies here. We revised all these policies to when we were making the own policy. So the UKIRI, the STFC, ICIS Diamond, and the universities data policies. So it's not something new. It's nothing that we are pulling out of our sleeves. And finally, your input is required. Do you have concerns about this policy? Are there some important aspects missing? Or are there some contractual obligations that may prevent you, and we haven't considered in this case? The data policy will be published in the website and sent back around so you can look at it. And that's basically it for the moment. Yes?
Very useful and really important development. As Abraham said, the policy will be published. It'll be available on the website. It'll be circulated presumably by the hub mailing list. But with time, perhaps if there is one quick question for Abraham. If not, I think we perhaps should move on. But I think perhaps one of the most important thing you said, Abraham, in your very interesting talk is the point on this slide that your input is needed. So please do look at this policy and do respond. Tell us if you have concerns. Tell us if you think there are things missing and if there are some contractual issues. But let's thank Abraham for the presentation and for all the excellent work he's done on